United who say they'd rather like the idea of you trying to buy Manchester United because they think you would run it differently. Firstly, do you think you might? Is there a chance of that? And secondly, would you run it?
Might I run it differently, or might I run it?
Might you run it differently? I'm sure you'd run it.
I think the answer about performance on Manchester United is a simple one, really, that the biggest correlation in success in football is money, without question. It's not the only correlation, because you've got outliers like Brighton, okay? But the biggest correlation by far is if you've got the highest revenues, you can afford the best players, you play the best football.
Sort of stop there with what Sir Jim had to say. Mentions Brighton, as have I, as one of the best run football clubs pound for pound in the country. Structure, organisation, how the operation is conducted is key. But equally, when you've got money and you spend big money, which Manchester United have done over the past decade, you should be one of the highest performing teams. Let's come back to that in a few moments.
Yeah. And Manchester United is one of those, it was one of those top three clubs. You had the two in Spain, Madrid and Barca, and you had Manchester United, and the all-in revenue was about 800 million. There's a few more have joined that club now, of course, because you've got Bayern Munich, you've got PSG, you've got, I can hardly say it, Manchester City. Yeah. And, you know, Liverpool are a little bit closer. But Manchester United are not playing in that league. They're not playing in the league of those other teams at the moment, and they haven't done for quite some years now, really, since Sir Alex stepped down. So something is not, you know, they're not firing on all cylinders. So I think that would be my point on performance, really. And
would you like to come back for another? Do you think there's a possibility you might?
This is the reason I played that beginning part. It gives you a prelude. It talks about the performance not being there, the club not being run right. It doesn't directly say that, but he implies it with something isn't quite firing on all cylinders. What he means is they're not running the club properly internally. It's very little to do with what's the on-the-pitch performance is a manifestation of how the club is being run. And now this is the question about him buying the club.
Might acquire it at some point?
well, I think
And he laughs, okay? And he starts to laugh. And it's important to, we're going to come back to the second part in a moment. The reason why I wanted to make this video today is because the reaction I've seen from certain Man United fans to what Sir Jim Ratcliffe has said is the only word I want to use to describe it is weird. It's so weird. It's almost this refusal to believe in what he has said. And the conspiracy theories they're creating alongside it, the way they're spinning it into a positive, is laughable because they're now talking about the very same things, or the same outcome at least, that I've been preaching for many, many months in relation to stop funding the Glazers. The Glazer out campaign is over if what Sir Jim Ratcliffe has said is true, because protests and hashtags are going to do absolutely nothing. And for Manchester United fans to believe that that is a tangible enough, powerful enough action, you're deluding yourselves. But let's take a look at what else was said by Sir Jim, and then we're going to round this video up.
And I was there in '99, that most remarkable match in '99 when in Barcelona. So, you know, that's sort of deeply etched in my mind. But Manchester United is owned by the Glazer family, whom I have met. I've met Joel and Avram, and they are the nicest people, I have to say. They're really, they're proper gentlemen, they're really nice people, and they don't want to sell it. And it's owned by the 6 children of the father, and they don't want to sell it. So if it had been for sale.
So not for sale. The 6 children do not want to sell it. He's met them. This next word here coming up is very, very key. Listen.
In the summer, yes, we would probably have had a go following.
So if it had been available in the summer, I met them. If it had been available in the summer, we would have had a go. So we tried. That reads to me like we had a conversation. It wasn't for sale. So that is it.
On from the Chelsea thing. But we can't sit around hoping that one day Manchester United will become available.
So he said that. And that for me, when I heard that, I had a sinking feeling in my heart that he's tried and the Glazers do not want to sell. There's another group at the moment that has put a £1 billion offer in to buy 26%. They want to get the likes of Sir Jim involved and then create some kind of fan funding so fans own a percentage back of the football club. So there are a number of things that are going on. But when you break down the things that he said is that, you know, it's bad news. That just put it blankly. But what's frustrated me is I've gone to a few Man United creators who are sort of, the headlines are, Jim confirms he wants to buy Man United. It's like, why is that the headline? How is that the headline? How is that the biggest take from this? Now, watch the content and they break it down and they're honest about what's going on. But the outcome has become almost a conspiracy theory. And I want to read out here something that I've seen from a Man United fan today. They've said, my thoughts on the Sir Jim Ratcliffe interview is this. Was actively willing to discuss the club. Yep. Saying the club isn't for sale stops Man United's value from inflating. If he wants Man United, he must maintain a positive relationship with the Glazers and then shown intent to buy a Premier League club before. This is all positive news. Brilliant interview. And it's getting likes and retweets. Yeah, I agree. We've got to try. You know, he's going to do that to keep the price down. He's going to do it to keep the Glazers sweet, so they don't turn away from him. I agree completely. And my first thought was, maybe that could happen. That is not an impossibility. This is a completely strategic comment from Sir Jim. But me watching that in real time, that sounded pretty honest, pretty genuine, and pretty upfront that the Glazers don't want to sell. And as I've been telling people for a long time, of course they don't want to sell. They make tens of millions of pounds a year in dividends individually. So they take that for their own personal bank account, cash, okay? They've made over £500 million through the share of sales, the sale of their shares, their non-voting right shares. So people keep saying, but the more shares they sell, the more power everybody else gets. No, they're non-voting right. They've got no power over the club. They don't get an opinion or a say. Equally, the valuation of the club continues to rise. The new TV deal money's on its way. New sponsorships are on the way. Fans continue to buy. And especially if Ten Hag does some good things on the pitch, which we all want, by the way, more people invest back into the club. Fans and commercial companies, therefore increasing commerciality, and the valuation of the club will continue to grow. And if the valuation of the club grows, if dividends are still available, and if the share price continues to fluctuate high, enabling them to sell at a profit, and when it hits lows like the moment, they buy a lot of these shares back as well, and they flip them. It's what a lot of business people do. There is no reason for them to sell unless Sir Jim Ratcliffe was to put in an astronomically big bid well above the market value, which most of the time these billionaires are not going to do because he knows how much money and investment the club needs. He alludes to the fact that Man United are not a well-run club. They waste money. We all know that stadiums and training grounds and all these facilities need to be improved to really put us back on par with our rivals. So no one's going to spend £6 billion buying a club worth 3.5, 4 billion, and then have to invest hundreds of millions of pounds improving infrastructure. They're just not going to do that. They're not going to waste money in that way. Billionaires, I don't know if you're aware of this, billionaires do not waste money. But the bit that really infuriated me the most is I'm now seeing Glazer supporting Man United fans. They might have 1958 in their tags. They might be on YouTube spouting how much they dislike the Glazers, but they're still going to games. They're still buying shirts. They're still buying lunch boxes. And I don't care if Man United fans get triggered by what I've got to say because I mean it. If your choice is to go to games, buy shirts, buy lunch boxes, more power to you. That's your choice. It's your life. We live in a free society. Do what you want. But please drop me out with this. I don't like the Glazers nonsense. For me, it's farcical. It's farcical. You know, you're not willing to sacrifice anything to get them out. And what these individuals are now pushing is this notion of we have to keep protesting. We have to keep the hashtags going because it's really making an impact. But at the same time, I've got to back what Ratcliffe is saying and not be annoyed about it because what he's actually trying to do is keep the Glazers happy and keep the price down low. If he says it's for sale, the price is going to fluctuate and then it's going to be harder to buy. I question one of these guys. He's blocked me now. He blocked me. Of course he has. So if you want to, so if the process here from Sir Jim is to keep the valuation down, we should stop funding the Glazers then, right? That will speed that process up. It would expedite the situation. He just instantly blocked me. And this is what is always going to happen in these circumstances. The Glazers are not going to sell whilst fans are still willing to give them money. But people make up these weird theories in their minds that actually everything going on is to reduce the sale price of the football club. And then they back it and celebrate it like, yeah, we're getting somewhere. Well, we're not, are we? Because the valuation isn't going to drop while you're still pumping money in. And at the end of the day, as I've already said, this is terrible, terrible, terrible news. Terrible news for Man United fans this morning. It's kind of being glazed over a little bit, massively glazed over as nothing to see here. Protests will continue for a while, no doubt, and hashtags will continue. But as I've been saying for many, many weeks, the Glazers will not sell the football club until they have maxed it out, until they feel they can get no more large sums of money out of the football club, or the valuation has reached its absolute tip-top maximum. The protest will do nothing to get the Glazers out. Stopping games going ahead once in a season, once every 2 years, once every 5 years, isn't going to stop the Glazers from owning the club. Hashtags are not going to stop the Glazers from owning the clubs. How do I know this? Over the course of the last year have been some of the most potent, some of the most direct, some of the most aggressive, some of the most thought out process we've done. Trending hashtags week in, week out. Sir Jim Ratcliffe tried to buy the club, and the Glazers said, no. We moaned about all the things they do, and the Glazers took £31 million out of the football club. We moan about what the Glazers do, and they increased the debts by nearly £100 million. We moan about their operations, and they sacked 2 managers within the space of 1 year, which cost the club £21 million. And I'm sorry to say this, and I know it's going to trigger some people, and I don't mean it in a disrespectful way, but I have to speak the truth. Hashtags and protests are now flaccid. They are now impotent in the quest to get the Glazers out the football club. The only solution left, and I know that most people aren't going to do this, and I definitely know the influential Man United fans, the diehard home and away Reds, the big Man United channels, the big influencers on social media. I know they're not going to push this notion, and they don't have to if they don't believe in it. But the only way to get the Glazers to sell in the short term is to pool your funds. If you keep giving the club your money, I can bet you my bottom dollar that while the value rises, while the income keeps flowing in, there is not a catch chance in hell that the Glazers sell Manchester United.